We are going to be finishing the lesson on perpendicular and parallel lines. So we started it yesterday, but I didn't really go over the success criteria because we already had to finish a different lesson yesterday. So here it is. Here's what you'll be tested on both your exit ticket or / entrance ticket, whatever, and your topic 2 test. So you'll be tested on whether or not you can determine if 2 lines are parallel to each other, perpendicular, or neither. Also, if you can write an equation that is parallel or perpendicular to a given line and goes through a given point. All right, so we'll do some examples on all of that today. I did start the lesson yesterday. If you want to watch part 1, I threw it in here. I'm recording now and I'll upload it later. Then you have the worksheet that you picked up yesterday. From yesterday, you probably weren't able to do much on it, but after today's lesson, you should be able to do the whole thing. So get that done as soon as possible. Preferably before tomorrow so that you're like really prepared for that entrance again. Then we have yesterday, if you were here, I put some packets on the back table, the topic 2 test review. If you need it because you didn't grab it, or if, I don't know, if you weren't here, just let me know and I can give you one. It mirrors the actual test, the one that you'll be taking Friday and then retaking on Tuesday. So it mirrors the actual test, it just uses different numbers. So that's an optional thing. I'm not requiring you to do it. I used to, and I used to make it assessment points. This time it's extra credit assessment points. So it's really up to you. So I highly recommend it. I did also provide one for topic 1. It's just I didn't print it out for you. I just put it in Schoologies. So if you really want to see if you believe me, you can look at the topic 1 review and say, oh yeah, that did look a lot like the test. So make sure that we're using the resources I provide. And here's the schedule for assessments. Any questions? All right, so then let's see where we left off yesterday. Did we do the class example completely? Yes. 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 Okay, so here's the class example again, just to kind of recap what we did. So if it's saying that it's parallel to a given line, what does that mean? What do we know for sure? The lines must have the same slope. So that's why we knew automatically that the slope was -2/3, because we said the line will be parallel to this given line. All right. To find your y-intercept, what do you have to do? Because remember, you need 2 things to write something in slope-intercept form. You need your slope and your y-intercept. How can you figure out your y-intercept? You use the point that it gives you. All right. So you plug in your point and your slope, y equals mx plus b, and solve for b. All right, and that's the work shown for that. Don't forget though, at the very end, you need to put your answer together. Don't just circle m and circle b. Put it together. So I know you know how to write things in slope-intercept form. Questions? All right, so I'm going to put up the student example then, and you'll do that from start to finish. All right, and I'll tell you what to write. You'll need to write the whole thing down. Just write that it passes through the 0.64 and that it's parallel to this given line. So just what I'm highlighting is what you need to put in the student example box. All right, so we know the slope based off of what information? What information in the given problem tells me the slope? All right, so we know from the given equation and the fact that it says that it's parallel to that equation, right? Because if they're parallel, they have the same slope. So we knew that. How did I figure out my y-intercept? What do I need to do? Plug in the given point. So you can't just make up a y-intercept. I know I'll see some kids try that on the test. It has to be also going through that point. So to figure that out, it goes x, y, plug it into your slope-intercept form. So y is 4, x is 6. We knew the slope because the fact that it's parallel. We knew it was -2/3, and it's just a matter of solving for b. All right, I know you might not like fractions, but that doesn't mean you need to get problems wrong just because it has a fraction in it. You can use a calculator. All right, -2/3 times 6 is -4. You have the b by itself. We add 4 to both sides. B equals 8. And then put it together. Someone asked me in the last class, like, what happened to the 6 that was right here? All right, I'm not changing this line at all. I'm just saying that my answer is parallel to that line. We're making a completely different line that is parallel and goes through the given point. That makes sense? All right. So now we're going to be on the new paper that I gave you. I didn't like the back side of the paper from yesterday, so you can ignore that side. And the problems are printed there for you, so that should save up a lot of time too. So the student example should match the one that I have on here on your new paper. Or not the student example, the teacher example. And you don't really need to worry about the vocab. I did put space for the vocab again. If you want to put like your own definitions to help you, go ahead. I would recommend that. But we already filled out the vocab yesterday. So here's a teacher example. What's the difference between these type of examples and the ones we just did? These ones, we need to make a line that is perpendicular. So what does that mean? Perpendicular lines, what's different or the same about their slopes? So look at your vocab from yesterday. The slopes are. So they meet at a 90-degree angle, but there's something else that I told you to add on to that definition. Yes? That the slopes are negative reciprocals. All right, yes, they meet at a 90-degree angle. That's true. But their slopes are negative reciprocals of each other, is what will help us in this problem. So if you're like, what the heck is a negative reciprocal? Just think about it. Here's the original slope, -1/4. What is the reciprocal? Don't tell me the negative reciprocal. Just tell me what's the reciprocal of -1/4? 4/-1, right? That's the reciprocal. But these are negative reciprocals. So that negative really just means that whatever sign it was before is going to change. So since it was negative before, my negative reciprocal is going to be positive. So you're just changing the sign. All right, so sorry if you wrote it in pen, just kind of scribble it out. These are negative reciprocals of each other. That makes sense? All right. So we know that n is going to be equal to 4 then. in our line that's perpendicular to this line? That would be the negative reciprocal. Question so far? All right, now solve for the y-intercept. So plug it into y equals mx plus b. We know the slope is 4 because that would be the slope perpendicular to this line. And then what's going to be my y? 7, good. What's going to be my x? 1. We get that from our given point. And then it's plus b. Since b is the only variable, now we can solve for it. So what is 4 times 1? We got 4 plus b equals 7. Now get the b by itself. How do you do that? We're going to subtract 4 on each side. Sorry. And then what does b equal? 3. So 7 minus 4 is 3. That's what b equals. Now again, don't just circle these and say that's my answer. Put it together in slope intercept form. So it should be y equals 4x plus 3. Questions about that? All right, how can I check my answer? Other than like just redoing it. Well, how can I check it? Graph it into Desmos. All right, if you do that, and I'll show you real quick. Put in both of your equations. So we had y equals -1/4 and what else? +1, and then plus 11, sorry. And then we had y equals 4x plus 3. Does it look like they're perpendicular to each other?
Yeah.
Yes, right? Perpendicular lines cross and they meet at a 90-degree angle. So yeah, it looks like we did it right. Questions? All right, so then that's just like an FYI. Now we'll do the class example. Anyone still writing off of this page? All right, so now the class example. We have the equation y equals -3/4 x plus 1 represents the given lines. And it passes through 6, 6 and is perpendicular to the given line. So the key word there that'll help us first is the fact that it is perpendicular. So perpendicular lines have what kind of slopes? Negative reciprocals, and I'm just gonna abbreviate it. So if my original slope is -3/4, what would be the negative reciprocal of it? 4/3. So flip the fraction, that's the reciprocal part, and basically times it by -1. All right, so that the sign changes. Opposite signs of each other. Questions? All right, so we know that our m will be equal to 4/3. Find your y-intercept by plugging in your point and your slope. Anyone still confused by that? All right, what's my y value? Good, we get that from there. 6. What did we say m was? 4/3, and x is 6. Don't be afraid to use a calculator for those fractions. I'll just do it by hand because these fractions aren't that bad. And then we multiply straight across. So 4 times 6 is 3 times 1 is 24 divided by 3 is 8. So I have 8 plus b equals 6. How do you get the b by itself? Subtract 8 on each side. And then b is equal to -2. The 6 minus 8 is -2. All right, did I finish the problem completely? We just have to write it, don't forget that step. So y equals 4/3 x minus 2 is the equation perpendicular to the other one. Sorry. All right, questions, comments? All right, do the student example, which is typed on your paper now, so I'll just leave this up as a model. Do the student example on your paper. All right, and here's the solution with work shown. All right, a line that's perpendicular to the given line, so the slope is 2, would be a slope of -1/2, right? So if it's a whole number, make it a fraction, so 2/1, flip it and change the sign, so -1/2. And then use that slope and the given point to find your y-intercept. The only mistakes that I see a lot is kids just mixing up the x and y. All right, make sure you have 5 in the y spot and 4 in the x spot. And simplify. -1/2 times 4 is -2. This time we need to add 2 to both sides to make the b by itself. So it was a -2. And then 5 plus 2 is 7. Put it together, that's our answer. Any questions? All right. And I'm gonna have you write a few steps down. I made those blocks really big for like no reason. All right, just wanted you guys to have a lot of room. So write these steps that I'm going to write in the box. So the first step is to make sure the equations are in the same form. All right, step 1 is make sure the equations are in the same form. Because if they're not in the same form, or if they're like in standard form, can you really tell like the slope right away? All right, no. Like if you look at these two that are given to us, are they both in the same form? They're not. It looks like they might be in slope-intercept form, but they're not. Because what's wrong with this one over here? The y is not by itself. So make sure the equations are in the same form, and maybe in parentheses, put y equals mx plus b. All right, because like standard form won't help you. Maybe point slope could work because it does have the slope in there. But when in doubt, just make them all slope-intercept form. So let's rearrange this one. What do I have to do to make it slope-intercept form? Divide each term by 3. All right, so do that on each side, which means make sure you do it to both sides over here. On the left, you have just y. Are we allowed to leave the slope as a fraction? Yes, I'm going to leave it as a fraction. Can I leave my y-intercept as a fraction, or should I? Probably not. It's better if it's either a decimal or a whole number. So what's 6 divided by 3? A positive 2, so write +2. All right, is the other one in slope-intercept form already?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just going to kind of rewrite it so that they're side by side. Don't have to rearrange this one. And now step 2 is going to be to compare the slopes. So compare the slopes. All right, so if they, sorry, let me scroll back down. If they have the same slope, what does that mean? That they are parallel. If the slopes are negative reciprocals, and I'm just gonna abbreviate it. If they're negative reciprocals of each other, what are they then? They're perpendicular. Perpendicular. And then if it's none of the above, so the slopes are not the same and they're not negative reciprocals, then your answer is neither, right? It's asking you if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And do write that down. So now let's look at our slopes. Slope of the blue line is -4/3. Slope of the red one is -3/4. So are they the same? So that means they're not parallel. Are they negative reciprocals of each other? They are not because of what? If they're negative reciprocals of each other, they should be opposite signs, right? So like it is correctly flipped, but it's not a negative reciprocal of each other. So don't let that trick you. So what's the right answer for this one? Neither. All right. Questions? So for this one, it is neither. Right. I'll give you like a couple more seconds to finish writing. But if you're like lagging behind, I did post the notes on Schoology. Just FYI. Yes? Yes. All right. So now the class example. So first, to tell if they are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, check to see if they're in the same form. Are they? No. So I can't just look at the number in front of the x and be like, oh, it's neither, right? Because in standard form, which is what this is in, you can't clearly see the slope. So don't make that mistake. So we need to rearrange this one, preferably into what form? Slope-intercept form, which means we need to isolate the y. What do we get rid of first? And how do I get rid of it? We're going to add 2x because it's already negative, so adding the same thing would make it cancel out. And we have 5y equal to 2x minus 4. Could I have written -4 plus 2x? Yes, it means the same thing, but I just want you to get in the habit of writing it like this because it looks more like slope-intercept. Right, 2 is still positive, the 4 is still negative. So we're good. Get the y by itself. What do I do? So divide each term by 5. On the left, the 5's cancel. Can I leave my slope as a fraction? Yes. Should I leave my y-intercept as a fraction? So what would that be as a decimal? Good. And then we rearranged it. So any questions on the rearranging? That's why I like these types of problems for tests, because you have to be able to recognize if they're in the correct form, to rearrange it if it's not in the right form, and then make those comparisons. All right. Is this other one in the correct form? Yes. So now we're just gonna compare their slopes. We did not have to rearrange this one. And I have 2/5 and -5/2. So are they parallel? No, because they don't have the same slope. Are they perpendicular?
Yes.
Are they negative reciprocals of each other?
Yes.
So then they are perpendicular. All right, so if I flip 2/5, I get 5/2, but then it's a negative reciprocal, which means we change the sign. -5/2 is the correct negative reciprocal of 2/5. All right, questions? So do the student example. I'll leave this one as a model because you do have the student example printed on your paper. Try that one out. First, are these in the same form as each other? They are not. Is the first one in slope-intercept form? Yes, even though there's no y-intercept written, this is in slope-intercept form. That just means that the y-intercept is what?
0.
0. All right, so someone thought it wasn't earlier, just maybe not clear. The other one though, what form is it in? Which does not help us see the slope clearly, so we need to rearrange it to slope-intercept form. What do I move first? Good, so move it by subtracting it on each side this time. All right, so it was positive to begin with, so subtracting it, we made it 0. Then we have 5y equal to what? Good. Now get the y by itself. I'm dividing by. So do that. Make sure you do it to both terms on the right side. And we have y equals, what's my slope? And then what's 1/5 written as a decimal? 0.2. So now compare your slopes. I have -5 over here, -5 for the slope over here. So since they're the same, what's my answer? Good, these are parallel to each other. Parallel because it's the same slope. All right. Another way that you could remember for like parallel lines, like what they look like and like the same slope, it has 2 L's in the word, right? The 2 L's never touch. They go up at the same rate. They are parallel to each other, the L's. And it's like the same letter, so it's the same slope. Questions? All right, so that actually wraps up our lesson, which leaves us plenty of time to work on the worksheet from yesterday. The one, I don't know if you could see it from here. So the 2-4 review practice. If you want to check your answers to it, you can look at the calendar back there. It has a link to it. You'll be able to do the whole thing now. And then, if you finish that, you should even work on your topic 2 test review. Okay, meet me at the back table and I'll give you one. So this is an example of like a test question that you would see. It says, which of the following lines is perpendicular to this given line? And then it says select all that apply. So what does that mean? So that means that there can be more than one right answer. All right, there might just be one right answer, there might be 2, 3, 4. Select all of them that apply. So first, since it's perpendicular, what should the slope be for my other line? It was 1/4 in the given line. -4/1, or just -4. All right, because they're negative reciprocals if it's perpendicular, right? Everyone with me so far? So which answers can I eliminate based off of that? Eliminate A. Can I eliminate B right away? Good, it's not in the right form. So let's table those two options. Can I eliminate like C or E? I can eliminate E. I know C can be one of my answers, but now for B and D, what do we have to do? You need to rearrange these ones. And don't be lazy. All right, don't just be like, I don't feel like rearranging them. The answer is just C. All right, take the time and rearrange it on your test. So rearrange it, and I'm just gonna kind of do it in my head real quick. If you think I'm making a mistake, let me know. But we subtract 4x from each side, divide everything by -1, and that one is a slope of 4x. So would this one work? No. Let me pause it. All right, so we can eliminate B because it doesn't have the right slope when we rearrange it. Now let's rearrange D. So, subtract 8x from each side. Then divide everything by -2. And we get y equals 4x plus a decimal. Right? But does this one have the right slope? Because it's again a +4, not a -4 like it would be if it was perpendicular. So D is eliminated, but you still have to check first. All right. Yes, so it might trick you like that. I know last hour someone thought it had to be at least 2 answers, not necessarily. Questions about that? All right, so then just FYI, test